We gotta go back.
SK14
I'm not a leftist, I'm a liberal, and we should just talk to each other. Okay, but what are we gonna talk about? Because you don't want to talk to people like me. You don't want to talk to anybody who's got anything to say. You want to talk to Jewy Jewstein, who says,
I've got a lot of questions about Israel in the last week.
Yeah.
I apologize for my defense of our greatest ally in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I will not apologize.
We know you won't, bitch. Epic.
shut up, you bitch. This guy's the biggest scum-sucking, anti-American loser, traitor.
Who likes Cardi B? 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 Who likes Cardi B?
He's mad. He's mad. Look at that shriveled up little face.
Who likes Cardi B? Who likes
Eat a gamer moment.
SK14
In the last week.
Yeah.
I apologize for my defense of our greatest ally in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I will not apologize.
We know you won't, bitch.
But I'm always just very puzzled at times when I get the
I'm so puzzled. I'm so puzzled all the time.
Middle East, the only place where all three monotheists, all
Somebody's got to go Joker mode.
Who likes Cardi B? 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 Who likes Cardi B?
All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, YouTube. Haven't been here in a while. You guys don't like me very much. At least YouTube's home office there in wherever the fuck, California. All you guys over there, how you doing? Go fuck yourself. I'm sure you'll find some reason to give me another strike. That's why I haven't been uploading or streaming to YouTube very often. It seems to be that maybe one or two of my strikes have fallen off. So hopefully we're good to go here. All right, we're going to talk about some things that maybe some of you that stumble across this live stream may have heard me talk about yesterday. I was over on Facebook where I was kind of trying to get into the groove of things again. And so one of the big topics last night was, of course, here in Ohio, Mike DeWine has decided to lift the tyrannical CCW permit, whatever the fuck they want to call it, money scheme, money grab. So that's awesome. After almost 5 years of him knocking it away for whatever reason, now that we're heading into an election for his ass, he thinks that this is going to save him. And to be quite frank with you, I don't think there is another Republican that is running that has as good of a chance in Ohio to win as the Democrats running. And the Democrats running are absolutely terrible. I mean, some of the worst Democrat politicians there are. And with no doubt, if you vote Democrat in the election for governor in Ohio, the freedom to be allowed to carry a firearm, if you're legally allowed to own a firearm, that will come to an end. I promise you that. There will come a way that they will put the permits back into place. I know that there are some Democrats out there, Democrat voters, maybe even some politicians, more recently Joe Biden, that say they are for the Second Amendment. But that's only because they have decided, like many other definitions, to change the meaning of what that is. The Second Amendment does not mean that you have the right to hunt on land that you yourself own or public land that is designated for hunting. It does not mean that on the weekends you can drive out to the country or a location where you can then yourself train for absolutely no reason. It is there so you can defend your life and the life of the people you love. Without that, the Second Amendment really doesn't mean much. I don't know how much the Second Amendment means defending your life from the United States government anymore. Of course, there's a helicopter flying up above. It's probably the FBI or ATF listening in, which they do from time to time. But anyways, I don't know that there is a place or time in America where we will ever be able to uprise against the government and overturn them if they become unbearably tyrannical, because they are absolutely already tyrannical. And we've seen that in its highest form during these last 2 years of the pandemic. I don't know what all we still can and can't say on YouTube because, of course, we're all just playing this game, right? You have to wear your mask here and there, but not here in this place. Most of us in the United States have probably already had COVID, whether we know it or not. And it was probably in our best interest just to let it run its course. But we decided that a handful of people, some that weren't even in the position or should have had the power to tell us what to do in that scenario, took many of our freedoms away for no reason. And we just accepted that. And I think at that point is when a lot of us realized that there isn't a whole lot the United States government can't do to its citizens that we would then uprise against. Some examples, Democrat or Republican, you could ask, do you think the Chinese government is worse than the American government? And I'm sure many of them would say yes. Well, do you think the American government is like the Chinese government? And I think a lot of people, it would be a hit or miss. But they are absolutely alike. See, the Chinese government puts out a lot of propaganda. Well, so does the United States. If you don't believe me, watch your local news. Any given point of time of day, there is some biases to sway your opinion one way or another at many levels of the government. They do the same thing in China. Well, also in China, if you say things that they do not like, they will remove that from being accessed from the public. They will take it down from sites. They will ban you from television. Well, they also do that in the United States. Now, you would think that some people would be above these decisions to be removed from platforms and able to be accessed by the public, like a president. Just 8 days ago, on one of the biggest YouTube channels there was a podcast and or stream with the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And I do believe you are allowed to call him the president no matter what. Whether he is in office or was in office, I think you are still allowed to say Mr. President. I have heard this in reference to other presidents that are clearly not in office, so I don't believe that that would be in any violation to YouTube's policies, but I could be wrong because it is Mr. Trump. But this podcast was taken down. In fact, most of Trump's rallies are unable to be seen on most sites. He is possibly the most famous man in the United States, and he has no ability to access the public. Now, this changed while he was in office. That's the even scarier thing. So who's really in control? Yes, your votes should matter, but do they really? If more than 50% of the population can vote for a president who then runs the country, but then we are no longer allowed access to him, how does that make any sense? And now that there's a different president in the Oval Office, we are constantly bombarded with propaganda, trying to convince us that this president is not incompetent, not doing horrible things from the country or for the country. But most of us know this just isn't true. There are things happening in the world that would not be happening if Trump were in the Oval Office. Most of all, we would not be purchasing as much oil from Russia. In fact, I'm sure that we would have a lot more control of our own resources and when and if we should use them. Because right now, when it comes to what's going on in the United States, we are pretty much going off of California's lead. Well, not only does over half of the United States disagree with most of California's politics, but most Californians do as well. In fact, there has been a great deal of Californians that have decided to leave California. For one, they can no longer afford it. And even when they are contemplating leaving California, California threatens them to still be taxed up to 10 years after they leave. If they decide to purchase a firearm, they are then threatened with unnecessary insurance and taxes just because they own a firearm that the rest of the United States does not have to bear. But for whatever reason, we are taking Californians' lead when it comes to the Oval Office. If California says Black Lives Matter is a good organization, they have done no harm in the past, then that is what President Biden will say. If he says that we should not be able to own 30-round magazines, that is also what President Biden will say. And I think many of us know that our vice president was a politician for some time in California and is just absolutely a horrid person. Her own party does not care for her. I think even most Democrats dread Kamala Harris and the possibility of her being president of the United States. I am sure there's a percentage of people out there that would not mind it because she is a female and she is black. But in most cases, neither one of those things make you a good president. They only make you appealing to identity politics. And so I don't believe for a second that there are Democrat politicians out there that believe in what the Second Amendment truly means. I do not believe that they will fight for the right for you to keep and bear arms. And there are even Republican politicians that have slowly helped strip away your Second Amendment rights. So, for a governor to come out and say that we are getting rid of our concealed carry weapons permit should not be seen as a privilege. It should not even be seen as a good thing. It should be something that we demanded. It should have been something that was never implemented. And if you right a wrong after so many years of a certain politician being in office, that doesn't make them a good politician. That just makes them scared that you will no longer vote for them. And I think that's where the Democrats in the Oval Office are headed in the next 2 years. You're going to see them say things like they are working on lowering the gas prices, but you will not see those gas prices lower. You will see them increase for the next 2 to 3 years. You will also see many of the supplies you need in household goods rise as well, and not just in the form of, increase in inflation as normal, but above and beyond that. And when you add a pandemic on top of that, and now world leaders taking advantage of us having a weak president, these are two of the biggest leading factors that will lead to the hyperinflation that we are seeing today in the United States. So, for them to come out and convince you otherwise, you would have to be very naive. And I know that there are a lot of Americans out there that are that naive. And if you choose to vote Democrat in the next election, you should only know that you are then allowing the downfall of your financial circumstances, your God-given rights, and potentially the downfall of America. And I just cannot allow the Democrat Party to be on stage, on YouTube, have a platform to speak and to say that they stand for the Second Amendment when I know that is not the case. Many people are on these platforms to tell you the truth because the truth cannot be heard anywhere else. They silence it, they remove it, they ban it. And the fact of the matter is, if you say that I can only defend my life with a certain gun and a certain amount of ammunition, no matter the circumstance, you are limiting my chance for survival. How much can a politician really care about you if they are willing to limit the percentage that you will survive and the likelihood that you are attacked? I don't think they can. And I was speaking about it a little bit last night where I said I am pretty confident in the fact that I believe that I respect a one-issued voter more than I do a one-party voter. And I can't clearly say if I am a, one-topic voter, whatever you want to call it. But to me, if you can't get on board with me having whatever I need to defend me and my family's lives, then I can't vote for you. Now, that's not to say that's where my, that's where my decision begins and ends. It's just that is the number one thing that you have to surpass before I will even consider you. So I guess it is where it begins, kind of. And then it moves on to other things. And from where I'm sitting and my perspective, I just don't see where the Democrats are doing any good in any category. They're horrible at national security. We literally have the worst politician when it comes to foreign policy. He has the track record to prove it. He also has the son that took advantage of it and the party that covered it up. They obviously do not know how to control economics. They never really bring down any of the spending bills in America. And when it comes to illegal immigration, it's kind of hard to say that, the Democrats have never did a good job, because Obama, surprisingly, did do an okay job. He absolutely could have done a better one, but he did get rid of a lot of illegal immigrants, no matter how much I hate his guts and I think he's a terrorist and I believe that he should be in a cell somewhere for crimes against the United States. But even if you are one of the Democrats that respects the Democratic Party because of Obama, I thought at the beginning of this, maybe Obama had a lot of say-so in where Joe Biden was headed and the direction that he would lead this country. But even that is clearly not the case. It is like Obama's politics, but with a 90-year-old blind man who cannot hear leadership. So, I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. It's frightening, even. I think that Joe Biden's presidency will possibly do more damage than the response to the COVID. I know that some of the time in my life where I seen the most gain in financial income, the most stress that I've been relieved of from financial responsibilities as far as the rates that I'm paying were when Donald Trump was in office. I also know that I felt different when Trump was in office. I felt like America was a different place when Trump was in office. And it was a better feeling than the feeling I have now. Now is a feeling of unknown, uncertainty, and just like an overall depressing feeling to know that we have such an incompetent and weak leader of our country. In fact, it's downright embarrassing. So, I don't necessarily believe that you should use crisis and an advantage to see personal gain. And I feel like the content, a lot of the content that you see that is politically driven is, for the most part, driven by, terrible tragedies. It's one thing to report the news, but to do that, if you're only reporting the horrible, evil things in the world, as most, content creators seem to do, obviously because that gets more engagement because people are scared. Content creators have learned the thing that politicians learned a long time ago. They have more control and power when they use fear and anger rather than happiness, peace, love, whatever you want to call it. Yet you hear those three words, peace, love, happiness, spoken the most from politicians and Democrats in particular. And I don't see it. In fact, I think that there's a time in America where we can no longer have political conversations, shake hands, and walk away from each other. I think at a certain level, you have to stop respecting and really trying to help out someone who has a moral compass so fucked up like a lot of Democrats do. This free-for-all attitude, we're to a point where it's almost unacceptable. The amount of things that you can get away with for being a certain ethnicity or voting a certain way in this country is ridiculous. Yet the same people that use those two things to their advantage say that it's the other ethnicities that are using it to their advantage. It's the other party. But I'm telling you, if you see some of the good people, the honest content creators and podcasters out there doing things to help people, and I'm sure that a lot of it is, with a lot of added drama, but not all of it is fake. And all those people that are actually doing good things, those aren't the hardcore Democrats. And I know even some of them aren't really politically driven, and some of them don't even let you know what party they're voting for. But it tends to slip. In most cases, you won't find a lot of conservatives that wear Black Lives Matter t-shirts. In most cases, you won't see conservatives be happy about an outcome of an election when a Democrat takes office. But you can clearly see these things in these content creators' faces on their videos, even hear it in their voices. I was listening to one today, or watching one, I guess it would be, and the content creator said, I love pit bulls. Love them. And mind you, this is one of the content creators that goes around and just hands out stacks of money to homeless people and buys cars for his friends. And like I said, I don't know how much of that is true, but I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt until there's evidence that comes out elsewhere, and I'm sure that it will if it's not true. I will give them that benefit of the doubt. But he said, I love dogs, pit bulls, especially, and I'm going to go drop off, this truck full of animal food for dogs, cats, other things, and I'm going to donate this much money to this animal shelter because I love pit bulls so much. And you would think that's where it stopped. But it didn't. He said, in fact, I love pit bulls so much that if I seen a pit bull on the edge of a cliff and Joe Biden hanging on for dear life, I would save the pit bull. I agree. But then he turned around and said, oh, and then I would, he didn't say that he would step on Joe Biden's fingers, but he kind of, made the gesture of like grinding his foot. And I know that's probably not something you would think a good person would say, but this person clearly has a passion for people. He clearly likes to do good things for other people and just see them, have a little break from reality. And I think people like that know that people like Joe Biden are for the total opposite thing when it comes to caring for people. Now, I think where the difference lies there is you can come out and say that, don't care for a certain person, but you then go do all these good things for other people. And then there's the people who say they care for everyone and go and do these horrible things for those people. And I think that's the difference between people like this content creator and Joe Biden. Joe Biden will come out and tell you that he is, for equality and he is doing all these great things for Americans, and he cares so much about humanity and the environment. And then it is probably one of the leading factors in what's going on in Russia and Ukraine today. And then he goes out and says that he cares so much and stands behind Ukraine. Do you really, big guy? I don't think you do. And that's coming to another topic that I'd like to talk on. You have to realize that in most situations in life, to obtain certain things for yourself and your family, at some point in time, that might negatively impact somebody else. Now, you can try your hardest not to negatively impact anybody else, but, I mean, the air that you have to breathe is obviously air that someone else won't breathe. The land that you decide to buy and occupy is going to be land that somebody else's family can't buy and occupy. The toilet paper that you buy is toilet paper that somebody else in need to wipe their ass cannot buy. So you can have all the good intentions in the world, but you will still negatively impact people. And this is something that has been happening since the existence of anything and everything. And to want to do great and good things for your country, there may come times where you have to gather resources for said people of that country. You might have to do things for said country and those people to protect them. America is no stranger to taking lives in order to keep Americans safe. And whether all these people that talk about white people in America owning slaves and conquering the Aztecs or, whatever Indian group, almost every type of ethnicity, color, and religion of people have owned and held slaves. All of them absolutely conquered lands for their people. It was not until the United States was forged that there was this idea that a man could come, start anew, and be free again for a very, very long time. And that still, that idea, that possibility came with taking away from other people. So, I don't know if I necessarily agree with what Putin is doing in Russia, but I will say that I think it's hard to say that he doesn't have the best of intent for his people. I don't think he would be doing what he's doing if he didn't think it was for the greater good of Russia. Why would you open yourself and your country to all this criticism, all this sanction, if it wasn't for the greater good of your people? The possibility of war or World War III is at its highest that it's ever been, probably because the world's, occupying police, the United States, has such a weak leader than it's ever been. I don't remember a time in my life where I ever can think back and say this might actually end up in nuclear war. And that's almost all the Democrats talked about when Trump was in office. Oh, he's working with Russia. It's almost like they were setting up the plot for this very thing to happen. How ironic. They also said things like Trump shouldn't be allowed near, the in control of the nuclear codes. But now we have a president that can't make it through a sentence without mumbling over himself, forgetting where he is, shitting his pants. And there's no Democrat in sight talking about he should not be allowed to have nuclear codes. And the time where we are most likely to have to use them. In a crisis where we are on the verge of possibly one of the biggest wars since WW2. It's just, I don't know. Am I the only one out there that thinks this? Is there really 50% or more Americans that believe that this shit show party can do a better job than what Trump was doing? And I would say Republicans, but in a lot of cases, Trump was doing things that even the Republicans didn't like. And when Trump did something, whether it had good or bad outcome, it felt like he was doing it for the greater good of Americans. When Joe Biden does it, it feels like he's doing it for the greater good of the thought process of Californians. It feels like he's doing the greater good for Black Lives Matter. It does not feel like he's doing the greater good for my children and most children in the United States. So how much longer are we going to live in a country where we allow people like Joe Biden to have the amount of power that he has go on? For one, I think right now, with the amount of influence and ability to still complete a sentence, that Trump is the only candidate to put this country in the back to the right direction. But at some point, we have to lower the age of a lot of these politicians. If you look at some of the leading politicians that have the most control and power in the pecking order of the number one spot in the United States, almost every one of them are 80 and above. Those people do not understand what it is going to be like to see the devastation financially that they are causing. In their day, they could not even fathom the amount of debt that most middle-class citizens in the United States have to take on at this point in their lives. For the richest man in the world in their day. And yet they have set us up in such a shitty situation that our children's children will never be out of debt. Sure, there will be, the random 1%, but I can accept that there is a 1% of the population of the United States that has more money than the rest of the United States, but it is unacceptable to say that only a very small portion of Americans live debt-free. I see a lot of Democrats talk about raising the minimum wage, but they never talk about decreasing the nation's debt. Who the fuck do you think pays for that? Do you think it comes out of politicians' salaries? It absolutely does not. In fact, the poorest of poor people in the United States pay those politicians' salaries. And those same politicians took advantage of those people and made sure that their small businesses closed and that Amazon furthered its overreach. Made sure that whoever is in control of Amazon for the rest of their family's I don't know, lifespan, generations upon generations, are financially wealthy, not stable, wealthy. But they're those Americans that never got to make it. And when they just thought that they seen the light, it was stomped out by the same politicians that those people pay their salary. That's disgusting. Many scientists had different theories on COVID. Many world leaders have different scenarios, outcomes, and suggestions to end the crisis in Russia and Ukraine. But we only listen to a handful of people. And if anybody disagrees with those few people, people like Fauci and Bill Gates, you're not only wrong, but your ideas are not even allowed to be heard. More people lost their lives to depression, suicide, financial ruin during the pandemic than was really necessary. There was a time where we could have said, okay, we have kind of an overview on what this virus does. It is time for Americans 50 and under to step up. We need you to take control of the workforce and make sure that this economy does not collapse. Whether that means you're a tattoo artist or a barber or a beautician, whether you trade stocks on Wall Street or you're a farmer, we need you to step up right now, because there are people that are a lot more vulnerable that cannot do the things that have to be done for our country to continue to grow upward. But that was never the case. There was never even a talk about that. We were more concerned whether this virus came from bats or a lab. We were told one that ended up being lied. We were told that we should be silenced for then speaking out against that lie. We have to take control of our country. That doesn't need to be violence, ever, in my opinion. But there has to come a point where we are no longer afraid to be called names because of the ideas that we have. We should be allowed to speak our opinion and share options amongst these top one or two people in our country. And they should all be looked at. If you're going to say that this pandemic is so severe that those small business owners should have to lose their life savings and their dreams should be crushed, if that means that only certain ethnicities relieved or received COVID relief funds before others, if it's that fucking severe that certain populations of the United States are served first in hospitals, then shouldn't we look at everything on the table? Not just someone like Fauci, who was known to have made more than one mistake when it came to AIDS, and I'm sure a lot of other things, among doing just absolutely horrible things and then saying it's in the name of science. The things that happened or led up to the COVID crisis, I promise you, these were things that were banned and abolished by the United States, but somehow Fauci managed to allow these things. I'm sure with the World Health Society, or whatever the fuck it is now. Like I said, the United States has so much influence, impact, and power over the rest of the world. To say that another, lab in another country was able to do these things and also had ties to Fauci and the World Health Center or whatever, and to say that they weren't aware of it, you're out of your fucking mind. These people not only knew about it, they made sure it happened. Like I said, if you believe that the Chinese government and the United States government is different, it's absolutely not by much. Not by much at all. And that's a really scary thing. If you were to ask your grandfather's father if there would ever come a time where America would be outpaced by China, and the fact that what they're doing in China when it comes to the government and their citizens would be on par with what America does with their citizens, he would laugh in your face. If our founding fathers heard of something as ridiculous as having the tyrannical mandates and COVID response that we've seen, not only would they have laughed in your face, they then would have gathered other people and fought you off. And I don't think that it needs to come to a point like that, but it does have to come to a point where we can't shake hands anymore with these people. We can't allow them to be looked at as gods. And unfortunately, this mindset that certain people have more authority and power just because of who they are, not anything else, has to stop. If you want that equality there that you speak of, you have to treat the life of a farmer in Ohio the same as the leading actor in Hollywood. And I don't believe that's very realistic. So for us to balance it out, for us all to be on the level, the normal Americans, the rest of the percent of America that isn't in that top tier, we have to stop allowing the top tier to take advantage of us. So, stop being afraid of being called a name. Stop allowing people that have influence or clout to take advantage of you. You know, in the time where we were at our worst in COVID, the only thing that we could do, and we still see it today with trucker strikes, is peaceful non-compliance. So maybe that's where we start. I don't know. But we definitely have to start having these conversations. To just say that the people that are in power should be allowed to keep that power and stay in control, I think that time has shown that it needs to be taken off the table. And there was a time in this country where we put educated and the best people for that job in those positions, and that time has surpassed us in the name of equality, which just goes to show you that this is not equal. If you pick someone because the color of their skin or their gender, that is not equality. You have to have a standard there to be met. And if someone is capable of being the best at that standard, they should be the person for that job. And we can't even do that in local factories, let alone the White House. So I think we have to stop saying that we're okay. America is not okay. We're not the best anymore. But we can make America great again. Why do you think that slogan had such an impact with so many people? Because it was true. The thing that helps you the most when it comes to anything in life is being authentic. Well, being yourself. That word escapes me at the moment. Authentic. I don't know. I'm probably saying that wrong. But, being genuine, and for people to be able to read that, you can come out and say a lot of things. That doesn't mean that you're being yourself. People have to know that what you're saying is true. They have to believe you. And we just can't believe our politicians anymore. They don't want to do what's best for us. And it blows my mind that it still goes on. You can go to an urban neighborhood to where people clearly are voting Democrat for whatever reason and ask them if the politicians in their neighborhood are doing the best for them, and they'll tell you no. You can go to middle-class suburban America and ask if they think that their politicians in their area are doing a good job. A high percentage of them are going to say no. Now, if you go to the highest hills in California and the richest parties and ask them, most of them will tell you probably yes. We fucked up somewhere, and we have to fix this. It's not right. And to come out and call people racist, Nazis, worse than Hitler, worse than, Pearl Harbor, to say things like this to people that have done more good for this country than most people in the Democrat Party ever will, should not be allowed to happen. So just keep that in mind. And don't ever let a politician tell you that they are giving you something, because most likely they took it away to begin with. They should be blessed and feel like they are special because they were chosen. And at the very least, they should be feeling that they are doing the least that they possibly can do as their civil duties. But to say that they are giving us something, to hear Biden speak the way he speaks, and to see the outcome that he has, is just a smack in the face. So, I know that one wasn't a very emotional roller coaster, maybe as last night, but I did want to get something up on YouTube for now, and I probably will be doing these things more often, seeing that I have a little bit more leeway with the strike situation on YouTube. We'll see. I'll try to upload this one to Gab later because I get a lot more engagement and views over there. I love everything Gab's doing. It's a much better platform than Twitter, Facebook, everything like that when it comes to being able to speak your mind and have free ideas. So hopefully we can get something working out over there again. But with that, guys, that's going to be it for today. Love you guys. Stay safe. Peace, y'all.